Welcome to Fayette Footprints, a podcast about the people, places, and events that make up the fabric of Fayette County, Georgia. My name is Kenny Blum. I'm just about a lifelong resident of Fayette County, a bit of a history nerd, and now an amateur podcaster. 60 years ago this August, Smith & Davis Clothing opened their doors. And in that 60 years, they've become much more than just a back-to-school get-your-jeans place. I am pleased to have an interview today with Mr. Tony Davis, one of the owner-operators of Smith & Davis Clothing. What do you do at Smith & Davis before you even get into the nitty-gritty?
Well, I do everything from top to bottom. So I'll, open the door, sweep the floor, sell and buy and hire and fire and everything in between. So we're pretty down to earth. Yep.
So it's okay to consider you the expert on Smith & Davis?
If there is such a thing, yes.
There you go. Well, when I was growing up, going back to school literally meant going to Smith & Davis to get our jeans. They've been around for a while. When did they open their doors?
Originally 1965.
1965.
That's a meandering story, which I've read some stuff online that everybody has confused.
Okay, so maybe we can get that ironed out.
A little bit of a history lesson, maybe.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know it all myself because my dad was not a great chronicler of numbers and times. He was a more seat of the pants than I am even. But the way I understand it, he worked as a 12-year-old boy for a man named Judson Smith, who had the trading posts, and it was called Judge Trading Posts on Highway 54, right across the street, actually in the westbound lanes of what's now the 4-lane 54 when it was 2-lane. So Judge Trading Post was there. I don't know exactly when it started, probably around 1950. But anyway, my dad started working there when he was 12, and he worked for Mr. Judson until he was maybe 15 or something, 16. And Judson moved to Moreland, Georgia, and he started Judson Smith's Trading Post in Moreland. Okay, and then my dad worked at what was the Judge Trading Post. A guy named Bill Davis, who's actually a cousin of my father, bought the store from Judson. And so my dad was in high school and he couldn't commute to Moreland, so he actually went to work for his second cousin, which was Bill, who's probably 20 years older than my dad. And so anyway, when he was in high school, he worked for Bill. And for whatever reason, when he graduated high school, he left Fayette County and went to work for Judson in Moreland. For whatever reason that was, I'm not sure. But he would rather work for Judson than Bill. I guess it's a short version. But anyway, so he moved over there, and my brother was actually born when they lived in Moreland. And then at some point between 1960 and 61, he moved back to Fayette County and he and a guy named Fred Smith started Ronald Davis Carpets and Fred Smith Furniture. And they were in a building right next to the sign still said Judge Trading Post many years later, but it was actually Bill Davis's Trading Post. So Smith & Davis Carpet, Ronald Davis Carpet and Fred Smith Furniture was next to Smith & Davis Clothing for about 4.5 years or so. In 1965, Bill moved to a property on Highway 85 and started the Trading Post. He didn't really start it. He moved it to the Trading Post, and he rented that from the Sheriff Stinchcomb, which is the building still there.
Yeah, just south of Fayetteville, right?
Just south of Fayetteville on 85, in a little brick building. And then my dad took over, and Fred Smith started Smith & Davis Clothing right next to the other two, the carpet and the furniture business. So that was in 65. Okay. Right about August, about now, for back to school, was their first time that they owned it.
And was it their current location?
Well, it's right across the street from what's now the antique store. So in 1979, we moved from the wood building that had been Judge Trading Post across the street to what is now the antique store, and that building we stayed in there from 79 until 88, and sometime like 83, I think, added on to that and doubled the size of it. And then business was good, praise the Lord. We outgrew that pretty rapidly, and then I came to work there full time in 1983. And my brother, George, works there, my sister, so the whole family still works there mostly. And then in 88, we opened the store that we're in now, which is like 20,000 square feet. And then Bill has been over on the Trading Post on 85. Mm-hmm. So people have gotten confused with all these different Davises. And the place where the original Trading Post was rented from, it's called Stinchcomb Lake. It was rented from a guy named Vic Stinchcomb, his brother was the sheriff of Fayette County, and so he rented from another stench cone on 85. And so everybody's names have gotten all mixed up in people's memories.
Right.
But I've heard people say they bought stuff from Bill in the 80s on Highway 54, and that would have been really hard to do because he was on 85
Yeah.
since 1965. But anyway.
I didn't even know before we got into this that the Trading Post was connected to your family. I had no idea.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, it's a second cousin, but it's I'd have to draw it out for you. But anyway, my great grandfather and Bill's grandfather are the same person. So
There you go.
Anyway, so he was a little bit older than my father, but they were great friends, and even until the day Bill passed, he worked until he was 90, and then he died a couple of years later. But he would call us, and we would send customers to him, and he'd send customers to us. It was
So not too competitive.
friendly competition. Yeah.
There you go.
So yeah.
So Ronald opened it because he had been kind of doing the business with Bill Davis anyways.
Well,
Judson,
he
sorry.
worked for Bill
Yes.
for 2 or 3 years, and then he was working with Judson. And Fred Smith is actually Judson's nephew.
Okay.
So Fred got out of the Army and was over there at the Judson Smith store in Moreland. He got out of the Army, and he was trying to figure out what he was going to do for a living. And my dad was, I don't know what he was making, $10 a week or some ridiculous number. He told me, I don't know if it was that bad or not, but it was bad. And he my mother's not sure if I was born in Moreland, where we were living when I was born. So she had 1 kid or 2, not sure when he was working with Judson. But Judson decided to take the whole month of December off and go to Florida. And my dad goes, what am I going to do? And he said, well, I'll be here. You'll be here when I get back. And he said, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. So Fred, the nephew of Judson, was in the store, and he didn't know what he was going to do. And so this building was vacant over in Fayetteville, right next to where they had worked. And so they decided to start those 2 businesses. And that's how they ended up back in Fayetteville and moved to some property, which is, my family still has some land on Ebenezer Road. So they moved back to Ebenezer, and my dad moved that house where I was born to the next house up is where my mother still lives, and I live just down the street from them. So
you haven't gone very far, is what you're saying?
No, not gone very far in life, but
I wouldn't say that now. So what kind of things was he selling back in the 60s and 70s? I'm sure it was not Columbia and Hook.
No. It was a different world in Fayette County in the 60s, 70s. Started changing in the late 70s, but basically back in the 60s and early 70s, it was had workwear like work khakis and work boots, and he had overalls. So basically, there was no middle ground. People didn't wear a lot of khakis and t-shirts and shorts. You had overalls, work pants, work boots, and people worked like pulp wooding was big in Fayette County, farming, and there was other things going on, but not much. So then you had the work clothes, and then you had suits. So he sold suits, sport coats, work clothes. Of course, he sold dresses and jeans for kids and all that. And jeans were just becoming in the 70s becoming fashion. They weren't before that. They were work clothes. So we were lucky enough to get tied into some of the early, like Gloria Vanderbilt's, Jordache, Sergio Valente, and all those brands.
When all the cool kids were wearing them.
Yes, that. So when it became cool to wear jeans, we kind of had them, stacked deep and selling cheap and all that stuff. So we had a lot going on, and that was more 70s and 80s and into the 90s, and even today we sell a lot of jeans. So.
And there's kind of an interesting story on how y'all got into shoes more, because tennis shoes were coming, or athletic shoes were becoming really popular in the 80s.
Right.
Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, we had a few little things, and I had been a little bit of an athlete before and had got some running shoes from my dad, and I think Brooks, we're probably one of the original Brooks dealers in the state of Georgia, and we had those, but everybody wanted Nike.
Right.
So we basically had to beg, borrow, and steal and get the Nike people to finally sell us some Nike shoes, and they only had like 4 models or 5 at the time, and so I'm trying to remember what the names of some of them was. Of course, there was the Cortez, and there was something, the Club Court or something. It was a little rubber-toed thing. Didn't look much different than a kid's, but it was super hot with
it had the swoosh on it.
It had the swoosh on it, and that got us kicked off into the thing. And my dad didn't really believe that anybody would really want to buy those except for when they were running or playing basketball. But turns out they like them for most of life now, at least. So we were kind of we were lucky on the beginning of that, and we did a lot of Reebok and sort of. It's very interesting. Back in those days, I started doing all the buying, and I met a bunch of people that are, most of them are old and retired, but they were the kind of the founders. I met Jerry Turner, who started Brooks Company.
Yeah.
And I could bore you to death with things that the guy knew the bones in your feet better than he knew his own children. So it was very interesting.
Well, that explains some of his success then.
Yes, and the only thing he didn't do was trademark or patent any of his designs, and everybody stole them all. So
Oops.
he was a shoe genius.
It's a shoe genius. There you go.
He was.
And what led to the opening of T&G All Sports?
Well, that was another long story, but we couldn't do certain things we wanted to do. We always were selling, individual, and wanted to sell to some teams, and Russell Athletic wouldn't open us up as a clothing store. So we decided at that point, Jordan and all the Nike stuff was going crazy, and we wanted to get also into the team business. So we talked to some people and got some accounts going and rented the old crazy-looking bank building.
Was it CVS or
It was
CNS? That's right. Yep.
Yeah, at one time, and I think Fayette State Bank and about 3 or 4 others before it. And we bought that big, 70s design Aspen Ski Lodge look, which is so impossible to heat or cool. But and we added a second floor to it, so we had a little more sales floor. And anyway, we did that for 32 years, I think.
Okay.
And that was pretty good. And everything changes though, and everything sporting goods now seems to be online. So
I was going to ask that if like especially like team purchases, they've kind of moved more online.
Yeah, everything's individualized now. So it used to be you could sell, every time you sell a soccer team, you'd sell them, 13 to 20 pair of Copa Mundials for the kids.
Right.
And they all look just alike. And now the uniforms are, one guy's got pink cleats, the other one's got shiny blue ones, and somebody's got gold.
Yeah.
So anyway, it became more complicated to do team business, and it was just was time to move on. And
Right.
we're glad the tire people are now selling all the tires they can out of that location.
That's right. And when did you start doing tent sales? Everybody loves the tent sales.
Yeah, that goes back to probably not too long after I got us. I'm guilty party, I guess. So probably about 86, probably.
Wow, has it been that long?
Yeah, we did a couple of them, took 3 or 4 of them. We started out with a sidewalk sale, and with what we call Davis luck, every time we put something outside, it would rain. So we were buying rolls of plastic and covering stuff up for an hour and uncovering it, and it was a disaster. So after the first or second time, we decided we're going to always have rain. We might as well have a tent.
There you go.
So we found a small tent, and it was in front of what's now the antique store. And so we had a small tent there, and every time we did it, we added 20 to 50 feet to the tent, and it finally ran out of space. So now the one we have takes up the whole parking lot.
Yes, it does.
Yes, 320 feet by 40 is the space we have.
Wow.
So it's actually about 13,000 square feet, which is almost as big as the sales floor in the regular store. So it's gotten out of hand. So anyway, and we park that whole 12 acres full of cars. So anyway,
Yes, you do. Yeah.
yeah. So
That
anyway.
itself is just a challenge in logistics.
Yeah, it's a logistical nightmare in some ways. But anyway, it's been fun, and the response of people in Fayette County to that is, we have people call and want to know what it is, because they'll fly down here and
Wow.
come to the tent sale when they visit their parents, that kind of thing. So we've really been in business so long that, we're fitting people's great grandkids that we started out fitting 60 years ago.
Did you always plan on going into retail?
I guess not. No, never planned to do that. I planned to go to Colorado and sell real estate. That was my plan. But what they say about God thinking about men's plans. So I fell in love with somebody who didn't want to leave Georgia at the time. So there you are.
There you are.
And here I am. So
Kind of getting through some of the darker days. How did you get through COVID with with everything going with COVID?
Well, we had, I think it was 39 days. We just tried to sell online and do a bunch of stuff. We were able to be open. We sold some, steel toe boots and did some things that were considered essential. And the fact of the matter is, we didn't make any money. It was a disaster. And as soon as we opened the doors back up, which I think was May the 1st of 2020, on a Friday, it was a Friday, and we didn't have any idea what we were going to do, because 39 days before we closed, we weren't doing any business because everybody was terrified. And we opened up that day, and the old Fayette County people all showed up and came in, and most of the ones that 85 and older, came in without mask and hugged my dad and wanted to make sure he was still in business. It was a great thing. With that community showed I just never realized that much support, or that many people really cared. But people who hadn't bought anything from us probably in a year to months came in and just bought some socks or shoes just to make sure we were going to be there. So
just keep it up.
After a few weeks, that first day, I had one girl who was in college, and of course she was sent home. And she said, "Mr. Tony," she called me. She said, "It's like a death." She worked for us in high school, and she said, "It's like a death in the family. I hear y'all close." I said, "That's the way it feels to me too." And she said, "Well, I'm telling you, if you ever open up, I'm going to be the first one you call." So when I found out we were going to open up, I called her. And on that Friday, she was the only cashier we had. Wow. And I figured we weren't going to do any business because we hadn't been. I know we were in the height of COVID. And so we were so busy that day, not really busy compared, but it was 10 times what I anticipated. And I don't think she hardly got a bathroom break. but I was on the phone calling people for the next day.
Right.
And so it continually got better. The community really responded and supported this, and we were, we had our plexiglass up and our mask on. And I remember somebody asked me, was I glad to be open, and did I like wearing the mask around there? And I said, hey, if they told me I had to wear swim fins in here to be open, I'd be flopping around in swim fins.
Just so nice to be back in.
Yeah, whatever they say, I'm going to be open. So anyway, that's what happened, and we decided we weren't very good at selling online. And so we're going to do what we always do and be hands-on and face-to-face, and God's blessed that for a long time. So.
That's awesome. How do you choose your things? I mean, you have a different market than somebody in Alpharetta or somebody in Griffin. How do you choose stuff that just seems to fit Fayette County so well?
That's the hardest thing to do. And one of the best things is a quote that I think it's from a Clint Eastwood movie, and it's a man's got to know his limitations. I'm old now, getting old, and I've got a couple of young buyers that really have better taste. Sam Perez is our general manager, and has a lot more taste than me. So I do work boots and running shoes, and he picks most of the fashion stuff. We have a girl named Catherine that helps us, and several other key people that make better decisions about fashions than I'm able to do. So, and the other main part of that is we listen to our customers, because our customers are always coming in and saying, "Why don't y'all carry this brand or that brand?" And once we hear that a few times, we'll start looking into it. And of course, we go to shows, and we have people in the industry that we trust that follow trends and know what's happening. But yeah, we're much more of a casual lifestyle, so we quit selling suits about 30 years ago, thank God. And a dress shoe now can be a deck shoe or anything, a Crocs, depending on where you go to church these days. So it's just a casual world. So we're all outdoor, and they actually make pretty good looking clothes that are very comfortable now that you can wear all day without feeling like you're going to sweat to death. So,
right. Well, you probably just touched on this a second ago, but what do you think it was that your daddy and your family has done to make y'all so successful?
Well, I just think the Lord blesses people when they work hard, and my dad was probably he was the hardest working man I ever saw. And he would, work 12 hours and come home and farm at night.
Wow.
And he did that for 40 years, and he wishes he could still be doing it, except I'm sure he's in a better place. He's not sweating near as much.
Well, I know that he left quite the legacy in that store over there, and everybody who's been working for him for the last 60 years knows about it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He was loved by a lot of people.
What challenges do you see for Smith & Davis in the coming years?
Lots of challenges. There always are, but we're blessed, and we roll with the punches. So it's hard getting good people, but I can't say that too loud, because the last 3 or 4 years I've been blessed with some great people. So I'm hoping that we're going to continue to do that.
Yeah.
But, yes, it's always a challenge, just between budgeting and we want to keep face-to-face and employee cost, and everything keeps going up and up. So hopefully we'll figure it out between labor costs and tariffs and all these things that nobody thinks about. It's still about people. If we give them what they want at a fair price, I think they'll keep coming. So that's what we got to do, is figure out what they want. That's the hardest part.
There you go. Well, that's a good way to wrap up. Tony, I appreciate you joining us with Fayette Footprints. This has been fun.
Well, thanks a lot. Appreciate you having me.
We will continue on Fayette Footprints next month with another fantastic episode. And hey, if you're not from Fayette County and some of these stories kind of ring a bell to you, why don't you consider starting your own podcast in your community? Next month, we'll hit on another fun and fantastic story, so please join us again. And if you have any questions, ideas, or suggestions, please let me know at FayetteFootprints@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us again next month. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll join me again on our next Fayette Footprints. This podcast will be available on most podcatchers, and you can always find episodes at FayetteFootprints.buzzsprout.com.